Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. All right. So I was on the website earlier reading the description for the topic today. And, and from what I gather, the topic is essentially, how do we develop a skillful relationship with our emotions? Right? How do we skillfully deal with and handle and work with our emotions that arise? And so that's basically what I'm going to be working with. The short answer is practice. That's the real short answer. Because the practice is what allows us to see things with wisdom and insight, and to understand how to manage things like the crazy states of our mind, right? When we think about emotions, what do we think? We think, love and lust and hatred and anger and happiness and sadness and all of these various modes that our mind can be infested with, right? All kinds of things that our mind, can be to various degrees, to more subtle degrees, to really strong degrees that our mind can be full of in our daily lives, right? In our lives. Okay? And those of you who have been meditators for a while, you know you can go through that whole gamut within a couple hours, right? You're at work, right? You see somebody you really like, so you get feelings of lust. Then you see somebody who you really hate, and you get feelings of anger. And you're reminded of what they did to you and all these kind of things, right? And then you go to lunch and you have good food and you're happy, right? And then afterwards you're tired and you get depressed and sad, and like the whole day, right? You've gone through this roller coaster of all of these different states, all these different emotional states that arise in the mind, right? For a variety of different reasons. So it behooves us as meditators, as practitioners, to what? Right? First thing is to understand, to know, to really see what is this emotion that's in my mind. Right? And how has it arisen? If I allow this emotion to kind of leach out from my mind into my speech and into my physical actions, is that for the benefit of myself or the harm? And so we need to know. Right? One thing that we never do in Buddhist practice is repress. Right? We're not trying to say, well, I'm a good Buddhist, I shouldn't be angry, I'm going to repress my anger and all these kind of things. No. We never repress anything. Right? We're never trying to force anything in our practice. We're trying to know. We're trying to understand. We're trying to see them very, very deeply. But to know, why has this emotion arisen? Right? And to understand, has this emotion arisen for something that in my perception is legitimate and reasonable, or has it arisen because of a misperception on my part, a misunderstanding on my part? Right? So one of the things that we tend to not want to do is to be a total prisoner of our emotions, right? a slave to our emotions, where we have no ability to see things, to understand that these emotions that arise, we'll all have strong impulses and things that will arise due to these emotions. And how should I have a skillful relationship with these emotions so that I can do what? So that I can act for the benefit of myself and others in the world, and not for the harm of myself and others in the world, right? So this is many times, this is how the Buddha asks us to reflect on our actions. Will this lead to my harm and the harm of others, or my benefit and the benefit of others? Okay? So whatever is going on in our mind state, we can investigate it, we can understand it, we can know it for what it is, right? We can understand our proclivities, right? Usually when I get angry, this is what I do, right? I take it out on somebody or this or that or whatever, right? Usually I get lustful and then I don't think about things and I end up in situations that I regret later, stuff like this, right? There's all kinds of things, right? All kinds of actions that arise from our emotions. Right? And again, we're never trying to repress, we're not trying to control, we're trying to understand what's there. Right? I'm reminded of something from my own life that I always find some enjoyment reflecting on. For most of my life, I was never really I don't want to say overly emotional, but I was never an outwardly emotional person, right? And mostly I remember being young, like, I'm not an angry person. I never have anger coming to me. I'm not people that are running around, big Italian family. I know anger, yelling, people yelling, all kinds of stuff. And I can remember, when my family would have tiffs, and my sisters and my family, everybody's there, and I'm like, let's just try to calmly reflect, calmly talk about what's going on and all these things. And then this kind of led to my sisters giving me the nickname of Switzerland. Like always trying to be neutral and calm and trying to reflect on things, right? And so I kind of built up this persona of myself that I'm not an angry person. Not so much anger in me. And then years later, when I was, seeing my therapist, really interesting guy, and he said, Joe, he says, you realize that sarcasm is anger, right? And I reflected, I was like, oh man, I'm one of the most sarcastic people I know. Like very like passive aggressive sarcasm kind of thing. And I realized, oh, I have anger, right? Yeah, I thought like, this emotion wasn't there. Like I almost even like sometimes I felt like, other people get really angry and they lose their mind and they're not logical, but I'm very logical and all these kind of things, right? So I would have these kind of thoughts. Then I realized, no, it's there, right? So this is why we don't want to ever try to avoid or try to repress or try to deflect our emotions or anything like that. We want to know our emotions. We want to understand our emotions. We want to understand when they're skillful. We want to understand when they're not skillful, right? This is part of our practice, right? We're always trying to develop what is skillful and abandon what is unskillful, right? So when we have an emotion that arises, right, we can, if you've been a meditator for quite a while and you've been really practicing like Satipatthana and being mindful of your mind and feelings and body and all these kind of things, you actually can have this ability where you can feel anger or fear or sadness or anything like that arise. But you've actually kind of developed the ability to be a little detached from it. you've been able to, okay, I feel this in my mind, this strong emotion. Let me try to act skillful, right? It's still there. There's still that anger demon trying to come out of your mind, right? Trying to go, you go, okay, no, let's try to act skillful. Let's try to minimize the damage, right? And some, a lot of times you can't do it perfectly, right? But maybe you can minimize, right? And as I kind of alluded to in the beginning, talking about how within one day or even 1 hour we can have such a range of emotions, right? It's important to understand that these are impermanent, right? They're not there forever. This too shall pass. And like I can, remember being in my depressive, moments, my depressive modes, and just that feeling like this is the rest of my life, right? Like, or I'm always going to feel this way. I'm always going to be depressed. I'm always going to be sad. I'm always going to be this. I'm always going to be that. But eventually, no, it changed. Right? The mind changed. Something new came. Right? So we can reflect on the impermanence of these emotions. We can understand that, yeah, I'm angry now, but it won't last. So while it's here, let me act on it in a skillful way. Right? Yes, I'm happy now, but guess what? Happiness isn't going to last either. Happiness is anicca as well, right? We're happy for a time. And so we understand, okay, this is good, we're happy, but shouldn't be too attached to it, because then what happens? I wish I was happy all the time, 24/7, 365. Right? And then what happens? 20 minutes later, that happiness goes away, and anger and aversion or whatever else arises. Right? And do we necessarily suffer because of that anger and aversion? Or do we suffer more because we wish that we always had that happiness? We want these pleasant mind states, and we don't want these unpleasant mind states. Just the same as, we were talking about yesterday, the same as ever, right? We avoid what is unpleasant, and we want more of what is pleasant. The same thing with our emotions, right? We always want to feel like we're in the beginning of when you just fall in love, right? Before the honeymoon period ends, right? We always want to feel that. We watch the movies, like the romantic comedies. Oh, I want to have this feeling forever, right? And we always want to feel the joy, the exhilaration of happiness and all these stuff. But no, that's not going to always be there, right? But then on the flip side, we always remember this pain, this sadness, this whatever this emotion is that I'm really feeling down, it's not going to be there forever. What can I do to skillfully manage this? Reach out to friends, reach out to help, talk to people, whatever it is, right? So, there's so many options to your emotions. I can only give a few examples, but this is as a practitioner, as somebody who investigates, right? Investigates dhammas, investigates the phenomena, right? All of our emotions are dhamma. All of our emotions are experiences that we have that we can use as a teacher, going on yesterday, and we can use to skillfully manage, right? To develop skillfulness, or we can just kind of be like, I just want to be impulsive and just go when I'm angry. I just want to be like the Hulk, and then this and whatever. But then I had the blessing of working with so many people who had very little ability to, I don't want to say control their emotions. They have very little ability other than to be completely wrapped up in their emotions. And what I found was I developed a lot of compassion for them because it felt, it's like a prison. Like I can remember being with one of my clients, one of the men that I was working with, and this poor guy just, when he got angry, he was the Hulk. Like he had, this is kind of like, I remember this gentleman because he's kind of what, when I talk about anger, I always talk about the feeling. It feels like some big dude straps you into a roller coaster and you have no control until the end of the ride. Right? You're just in it for the ride. Right. And then after you come out of the roller coaster, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? And you have regrets and things like that. Right. So it's unfortunate, but there's some people who have this, whatever it is, where their emotions are so strong and their ability to manage them is so weak that it becomes such a prison for them because they don't want that. They don't want to be in that. They want to be able, but that's why you can work with therapists and stuff like that to manage your emotions so that you can skillfully use them, skillfully understand them, right? So we know that this is not only therapeutic, but this is also in Buddhism, right? We can understand why these emotions have arisen, right? And sometimes they arise for a good reason, right? But on the other hand, we also don't want to let our actions be totally controlled by those emotions. We want to have mindfulness and wisdom in our actions, right? So sometimes we get angry and we have to reflect and investigate. Am I angry for a legitimate reason? Am I perceiving something that's accurate? Right? And if not, then you're like, oh, well, why am I being angry? I just misperceived this enough. But then if you perceive like, yeah, this is a real reason why I'm angry, it's a real thing that needs to be addressed, okay, right? But you don't address it while you're angry. You try to let the anger die down. You try to address something with mindfulness and insight. Right? Because the Buddha is very clear, right? I used the simile, I think I might have even used it yesterday. But the similes that the Buddha uses about the pots of water and how when we're full of ill will or full of lust or full of whatever, we can't see our reflections in the water. Right? And so the Buddha says that when you're in such a state, you can't see what's good for you or for another person or for both. Right? So this is what I mean by developing a skillful relationship with our emotions, right? Investigating them, understanding them, and using them or not using them in ways that are skillful and beneficial as opposed to harmful. Right? Because we know that if we have no ability to manage and investigate and understand our emotions, then we can do a lot of harm. But if we can skillfully understand and investigate and know our emotions, then we actually can do some good. We can do some skillfulness. Right? Even when we have strong feelings of compassion, right? Compassion, emotional compassion that arises in our mind. Right? Even still, we might feel like, oh, we want to do something. We need to help. We need to do that. But without wisdom, we can do something that actually hurts the person we want to help more. Right? So even with something that seems very skillful off the top of our head, we still want to make sure that we have wisdom and insight so that we can use these emotions to do skillful things and to act skillfully, right? We're always trying to abandon the unskillful and develop the skillful. So I guess that's probably all I have for developing a skillful relationship with our emotions. We can go to questions.
Great, thank you, Bhante. And there's a few questions and comments. So when you were describing going through the day and feeling lust and hatred and joy and depression, Adriana wrote in all caps, "Yes, LOL." And Jen wrote, "Literally my work day every day, LOL." But then later she wrote, "minus the lusty one." So AP asks, when it comes to the emotion of lust, do you consider Asubha meditation to be the most effective?
It depends. What I would say is, if you have strong lust, really try to investigate it and to know it first. Asubha meditation is kind of more of like a strong Band-Aid. It's really for, if you're about to do something really unskillful, you really pull out all the stops. They're like, okay, this person, they're a skeleton or whatever. You do all these, or you reflect on the body parts and things like that. But in general, what I would say is, first, what you want to do is understand that lust. Why has that lust arisen? Right? Really know. Like, it would be funny. Like, what one thing I noticed, that every time I went on a retreat, I ended up having what I later nicknamed, because I would observe this process, and every time I went on retreat at Bhavana, I would develop what I call the retreat crush. So like my mind would kind of like analyze all the women that were in the retreat, and my mind would be like ticking off boxes. Oh, that hair I like. Oh, the eyes. Da, 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 da. And then my mind would actually, okay, this person. It's almost like, like we were like lost on a desert island. We had to repopulate the world, and my mind's like, okay, this is the person, right? It was just a weird thing, but I noticed that my mind would tick off all of these attributes, right? And all of these, it's so cute how they smile or whatever, all these kind of things. My mind would do this, right? And I would just watch my mind go through this, right? And then I'd want to like look towards the person, or like if we were doing yoga and they came close to me, I'd be like, ooh, they came close to me, right? So I was like, I'm in this meditation retreat, and my mind's kind of full with all this like, romantic and lust and things like that, right? But so I investigated, I understood it. I started to see how the mind does this, like why this lust arises, and what the tendencies of my mind are, and all these things, right? I think that was more beneficial than I'd be like, body parts, feces, like that. I mean, that's like, so like what I would say is like, that's something like should be used as a very strong antidote to very specific cases. When lust is arising. Now, to do that like normally, just if you like had an everyday practice where you did Asubha meditation, that's different, right? Because you're reflecting daily on the parts of the body and things like that. That's different. But in terms of as an antidote to lust, really investigate the lust first. Take it as a teacher. And now, if that lust is going to cause you to do something unskillful, like you're going to go over and like molest a person or something like that, then yeah, do something like the Asubha. Really do something that's really going to try to cut that lust. But otherwise, use it as an investigation. Again, we're never trying to repress. We're never trying to say, look, it's really bad that this stupid human body lusts after these other stupid humans. No, you reflect, you understand, okay, I'm in this body, and unfortunately this body has these drives, like, eating and reproductive and drinking and all these kind of things, right? So you understand, okay, this is, my mind is going through this thing and I'm observing and my body is having these reactions, but that doesn't mean I have to act on them, right? I can use them as a teacher.
So Adriana wrote retreat crush.
Yeah.
Oh,
every single retreat, my mind just ended up choosing one woman. It's just the way it was. It was kind of a funny thing.
Jen put the shocked emoji. Bradley wrote, retreat crushes are so common, LOL. I've known people who left retreats as new couples. Mm-hmm. Anyway, some more questions.
Most of the time I actually tried to not talk to them afterwards because I didn't want, because I was like, this is just this one time. I had this crush. I'm never going to see them again. It's not like, hey, can I have your number? I had this crush on you the whole retreat. Can we talk? No, but I observed. Yeah.
Jen asks, what about emotions that are, quote, long-term, such as after a divorce where even years later you still feel hurt and emotional when thoughts and reminders come up?
Yeah, well, that's, long-term emotions like this are things that, if it's serious enough, right? If it is actually like impacting your day-to-day life in serious ways, then that's where, using some kind of therapeutic intervention is good. Otherwise, sometimes you just reflect on it. Like, in all honesty, like, I still kind of remember like the breakup I had with my first girlfriend, and I still have feelings related to that. It was like 20 some odd years ago, right? Like, that stuff kind of stays with you, right? So you kind of understand that, like memories and emotions and stuff of the past that are triggered, connected to certain, smells and places and environments and experiences and all that stuff is going to come up, right? We understand that this is, so, you had a divorce, right? And a divorce, even when it's the most amiable, divorce and everything goes okay and, everybody's there for the child and all that kind of stuff, there's still a lot of strong emotions. You were married to somebody at one point, that person was, that person that's like, oh, I love this person, this is the love of my life or whatever, right? I don't know anybody who's like, well, I don't think this person loves my life, but I should get married. Maybe I'll find somebody else and get remarried. Most people get married because like, oh, this is this person, right? So you have these strong emotions, right? And so these are going to be part of your experience, right? For many, many years to come, right? But if it's strong enough and detrimental enough, then, some kind of cognitive behavioral therapy, working with somebody might be beneficial. Otherwise, to understand them, to know them, to reflect on them, and to understand, okay, listen, this is going to arise. Right? I'm not in love with this person anymore. Maybe I don't want to have anything to do with this person, but we have kids together, so we have to kind of see each other at least X amount of times. And so every time I'm going to have to see this person, this is going to arise, either anger or loss or whatever. And so you reflect, okay, I understand that when I see this person, this is going to arise, but it's not going to be, it's impermanent, right? And then when I, once I'm away again, then the next day, I won't feel this anymore, right? So you understand that this is, emotions and thoughts and, with strong experiences in life, that's kind of imprinted in our minds, right? And if it's a strong enough imprint that really harms you, then therapy would probably be best. Otherwise, you reflect on it, you understand it as a Buddhist practitioner, as a meditator, as part of your experience, as part of what you deal with.
Jen also wrote, there's emotions that are hard to consider impermanent, like when remembering a loved one who's passed. After 25 years, they still arise. Is this considered unskillful?
No. No, that's just the way it is, right? So even this, it's interesting enough for me. Like, most of you know, I was married years and years ago. So she died 15 years ago, right? And the first couple of years it was tough, but as the years went by, like I'd forget the our wedding anniversary and the day she died and all these guys. So they just became normal. And then like last year when I turned 40, like all of these thoughts and emotions and everything just started flooding out. I'm like, where the heck are all these things coming from? Right. And I realized, oh no, this is just part of that experience, right? Loss, especially somebody who you love, like a parent or a child or a spouse. That strong, deep attachment, when that's severed, that is a very traumatic thing, right? And that's not something that's going to go away, right? When you think about that person, when the next, when some kind of a date that, reminds you, all of that stuff, that's going to be there, right? Again, right? If it's something that is harming your life, you have to do some therapy maybe. Otherwise, you just reflect. You understand. That's not unskillful, right? This is if something that is arising, an emotion in and of itself is not skillful or unskillful. An emotion is an emotion, right? Just like a thought. Well, I don't want to say a thought that arises. I guess it could technically be unskillful, but really what I'm trying to point towards is how your intention on how you react and use that emotion is skillful and unskillful, right? This is just an emotion that's going to arise. You didn't even ask for it. It just came up, right? So you're not trying to get angry at it or push it away or anything. You just, okay, this is arisen. This is what is arising in my mind, and so I work with it. And so you reflect on it, you understand it, and then you can think of skillful ways to manage it, skillful ways to do something about it. Like if it's somebody who you've lost years and years, like I was even just talking to my mom, weeks ago, and she was talking about how I think it was like the 30th anniversary of my grandfather's death, and still to this day she thinks about him every day and things like that. That's normal. That's like the people who are very close to us and we bonded with in our life. We're going to suffer when that attachment is cut, and that's not going to just magically go away fully with time. It'll get easier, right? You'll be able to manage your life and go through it, but those kind of strong emotions will still be there. So you understand it, you reflect on it, right? Maybe you can even think, well, these emotions have come up. This is the date, whatever. Maybe I can do something skillful in their name, right? Like Catholics can have a mass said in their name. You can donate in somebody's, in their name. There's positive things you can do to kind of, skillfully adjudicate that emotion. Like, oh, okay, this emotion. Well, let me do something good, right? And you make yourself feel good, and then you actually kind of build that connection of I have this loss, but I can do something good with it as well. Right?
And Gabriela asks, how do you work with emotions of abandonment?
Yeah, therapy. So many of these, like abandonment is often something that comes from childhood, right? I mean, it's often something that is deeply, deeply rooted. And it's not just something like, oh, I had my first boyfriend and they abandoned me and now I feel sad. No, this is like real deep issues of abandonment. Almost always, oftentimes, are related to not just boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff like that, or even just friends. They're related to people who you trusted and who you really connected, like your parents and loved ones and stuff. and then you feel abandoned by them. And then you're like, okay, well, if I can't even trust these people who are supposed to be the closest people to me in my life, how am I supposed to trust anybody else? Right? I worked with, for 10 years. My job was, child protective services. I knew children who every adult in their life failed them in one way or the other. And here I come, hey, I'm just a, worker. And do I expect them to be like, oh, nice to meet you? They're be like, no, who the hell are you? Get the hell out of here. I'm supposed to just trust some random person from the government? No. Right? So you understand, like you reflect, oh, okay. How, how do I reflect on and understand that this is what I because of all things that have happened to me in my past, now I feel like, maybe I shouldn't get too close to somebody because then they're just going to abandon me. Or if I am close to somebody, I need to strangle them in place, right? So that they don't abandon me, right? And usually what happens, right? What happens when you do that? If you strangle somebody in place, they slip through your fingers and they get away, right? Because nobody wants to be strangled in place, right? So oftentimes, the fear of that abandonment will actually facilitate abandonment, right? So you can try to reflect on that. Try to reflect on, like, okay, like I'm having a fight with my significant other or my friend or whatever. I'm feeling these emotions of abandonment. Let me just calm down. Let me just reflect. Let me just clarify with the person, right? And if they're close enough to you and they understand you and they know you, you can say, I'm feeling these, my history, what I'm feeling these emotions of abandonment, let's try to, deal with this in a skillful way. Let's try to, so that they know, your emotional state, right? So that they understand. That's if you're living with somebody, especially somebody who, you don't exactly click with perfectly, and you have kind of an abrasive relationship with, telling each other your mental states actually helps a lot. I know this from experience. Right? There's the one monk that I lived with who, we didn't like dislike each other per se, but we had a lot of kind of misconceptions and abrasiveness with each other, and we literally just started like when we would come together. Like, okay, this is what my mind is like. This is what my mind is like. And then naturally, it was hard, but we were able to work with each other in that regard because we understood where, we were coming from. So that might also be beneficial. But abandonment, other than working through it, therapeutically, kind of really understanding, reflecting on its origin, reflecting on, how it can cause you to actually cause yourself more suffering, right? Like the strangling somebody to stay in place. Don't leave. If you leave me, I'll kill you, right? Stuff like, or no, if you leave me, I'll kill myself. Like usually, I'll kill you. That's much more rare, but so it's very important to understand that. If you understand that that is a tendency of yours, then you can use it. You can act skillfully on it. But you have to have the wisdom and insight to understand it first.
Okay, and she also asks, what's your advice on emotions related to grief?
Let it happen. Let it be. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to, what you call it, the typical Hollywood thing where you like hide in your room for like a month and sit in bed and be depressed and cry, then cry. Do it. Right? Just let it be. Let yourself go through that process. You need to go through that process. We're not trying to repress. We're not trying to. You need to let yourself go through it. Right? And because that is also how you're going to allow yourself to move forward from it and skillfully allow. If you repress it, then it's always going to keep coming back up. But if you let yourself go through it, then you say, okay, you move through it. But you also try to think about skillfully, like, my life is not over. I can still do lots of good things with my life, and I can still move forward with my life. And It won't be the same because I've lost that person, or I've lost whatever. I've lost my dream job. I can't do my dream anymore because, I can't play in the NBA because I, lost a leg in an accident or something like that, or whatever it is, right? You reflect, okay, I can't, what was in the past that I really loved is not there anymore, but I can still move forward. I can still try to do the best I can with the life that I have left, right? So you reflect on that, and you just let it happen, let it be. And like what I found is really one of the best ways to work with grief is to do something good, right? Like when my wife died, she died of cancer. Like me and my brother and sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, for like 3-4 years, we got involved with American Cancer Society, like Walk for the Cure and all that stuff. And we would do these things like it was like a couple months after my wife died. And, you do this thing where you like walk around, and like some people, and I literally for like 6 hours, I just walked just because I felt like I needed to do it. Like it was something I needed to do, something good. Right. And then, years went by, and we're like making food for the people and doing all kinds of wonderful stuff, and meeting people who are survivors. Both of my parents are cancer survivors. Multiple times they've had cancer and things like that. So like to do something good, to be around people, to help people, and to be involved in things and stuff like that, that's a very good way to, it doesn't take away the grief, but allows you to skillfully process it, right? And to use it to move forward in a skillful way.
Eva asks, how does one deal with disappointments in family members or ill will towards someone?
Disappointments in family members. Well, probably the problem is you had expectations, right? Expectations equals suffering, right? Our family members are what? They're beings in samsara, right? We have expectations on them because we have expectations of what a family should be, right? Maybe a family they should always have our back, right? Our family should always, want what's best for us, and all these kind of things, right? But that's not always the case, right? That's not always the case, right? And also people grow, people become different, right? People move on, right? So, to understand where this person is, and to understand where you are, like you've changed, right? And to kind of come to terms with what the reality is, not kind of what you wish or what you expected it to be or anything like that, but to come to terms with really what is going on and understand your relationship now with this person, right? And maybe, it's a relationship that you need to set boundaries or distance yourself from or anything like that, right? Or maybe there's stuff you just need to work through to come together and to realize, oh, I was so stupid, we held on to this grudge, let's try to, life is too short, why are we doing this stupid stuff, let's move past it, right? So different situations have different skillful means, right? But to understand that, that this person is a different being. This person is, a being in samsara, just like you, with their own, views and beliefs and opinions and dreams and desires and happiness and sadness and all that kind of stuff. And, maybe what you hoped would happen with your relationship with them is just not going to happen. What was the second half of that question?
Ill will towards people.
Yeah, ill will towards people. Yeah. Metta. An insight, understanding. The more you understand the nature of reality, the more you have like, oh man, God, I'm such a stupid being. And I'm all with all these other stupid beings. We don't know what the heck we're doing. We don't know how to be skillful. We don't know how to be happy. We don't know how to do any of this stuff, right? And so it's like, man, best thing to do is get out now. But you understand, like, oh, okay, so why am I You know, like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just trying to do better. Why do I have ill will for these other people? Right? You know, they don't know what the heck they're doing either. You know, maybe we get on our high horse. I'm a very skillful person. I don't harm anybody or do anything, but they're really harmful. But then, every time that happens to me, I've developed my mind to be like, oh, really? And then all kinds of things will pop in my mind. And I'll be like, oh, don't show me that. I don't want to see that about myself. Right. So that's a good thing to reflect. You understand, like, oh, like, not to get on too high of a horse with other people, right? You understand, okay, maybe they're being unskillful, maybe they're harming others, maybe they're doing this, maybe actions need to be taken against them. It's just like somebody who's like, maybe like a murderer, somebody who kills somebody, right? Like, yeah, they probably have to be in jail for the rest of their life, right? Or something, right? But there's no need to have ill will towards the person. What that ill will is only harming you. It's only abiding in ill will in your own mind. It's not helping or harming that person. They don't care. They probably, oh yeah, this person doesn't like me. Yes, let the hate flow through you and all these kind of things, right? But you're just making yourself suffer. So why would you reflect on these things? Why do I have this ill will towards this person? Now, if it's a person who's really harmed you directly, sometimes that's hard to let go of. It really is. I know from my own experience that's really hard to let go of. But you can't continue reflecting on why am I doing this to myself? That person, even the Buddha says, I don't remember the specifics, but essentially he says, allowing yourself to get angry is what your enemy wants, right? Like, doing this, acting in these unskillful ways is what your enemy wants, right? And even if you don't have a human enemy, you kind of think of Mara, right? Or whatever. Like, anything that's unskillful in the world wants you to be unskillful. And so, why do I want to be unskillful? Why do I want to have lots of ill will? I don't want to have lots of ill will. Now, again, you're not trying to repress your ill will, right? You're not trying to say, I'm such a horrible person, I have ill will. No, it's there. But what you're trying to do is like, I don't want to, this ill will is really unsavory and it really kind of agitates me in my mind and it's not peaceful. So you reflect on what the gratification, the danger, and the escape. This ill will, I don't like this person, they should get what they deserve. I hope karma comes back and smacks them and whatever, right? Or I hope the next life they're in the hell realm, right? All these things, and you're just like, wow, man, my mind's so much nicer when it's not full of ill will. And so maybe I should try to practice lots and lots of metta, develop my insight so I can have lots of compassion and understanding in the nature of samsara and the nature of the world and the nature of the ignorance of all of us human beings. Always remember yourself, right? The Buddha says, don't look at the omissions and commissions of others. Look at what you have done and not done. What that means is we can get lots of lost in judgment of others, but we don't see that we're acting unskillful and that we're causing our own suffering and we're also harming other people. And so we reflect, okay, let me let go of this ill will, right? They may be done a horrible thing. They need to go to jail for the rest of their life, but why do I need to have ill will for this person? I don't need to. Justice should be done or whatever should be done, but ill will, that only harms me. Right? This is not from the suttas, but it's a very apt thing of being angry is like picking up a hot coal, right? And you burn yourself before you even throw it at another person. So that's a very apt simile for anger and ill will. That you just don't want it in your mind. It's so heavy and so yuck. So much nice and peaceful when your mind's full of metta, Brahma Viharas, dwelling in the heaven realms, right? That's so much nicer than dwelling in hell realms.
And similarly, Karen asks, for someone with a proclivity towards irritability and anger, any suggestions?
What makes you investigate your idea of the proclivity? Like you say, I am just it's almost kind of like the reverse of what I say. I'm not an angry person. But like, in many ways, it can actually be harmful to kind of like build up like the character, like, you know, this person. Oh, I'm such an angry person. I'm so prone to this and I'm so prone to that. That actually is not that skillful either, to be honest with you. Right? Because what does it do? It kind of be like, it actually builds up the habit. Like, this is just me and I'm just going to be angry and I can't do anything about it. No, no. Okay. Anger has arisen, and maybe due to whatever causes and conditions in my past, in my life, I have, you know, I jump off the handle a lot or whatever, right? Maybe whatever due to these causes and conditions, right? Investigate that, understand it, know it, use it as an object of meditation, right? Understand if that's something that you really think that you get angry or you jump off the handle more than the average person, really reflect on it, really understand it, really investigate why that you think that is. Why investigate the habitual tendencies, the habit systems that you have of this trigger happens, then you do this, and then this happens, right? Investigate that, right? And the more you investigate, the deeper you get into your meditation practice, then you can try to cut yourself off early, right? You try to be like, okay, let me try to act less impulsive to my anger or my agitation. Let me try to act more skillfully this time, right? So don't build up the self of, this is what I naturally am. So the kind of like the same of like anything. I like, with me, I'm like, well, I'm never going to be a good sitting meditator because of this leg and because I have trouble breathing and I can't follow the breath. And I did that for years. And then I realized, oh, wait a second, I'm making myself worse doing this. Right? I have these things, it's okay. But if I just build this up as like part of my identity, it's not helping me. Right? Let me just deal with it as it is and understand it and reflect on it and say, okay, this is how it is. Now, how can I skillfully use it? How can I skillfully manage it?
Okay, and that's the last question. So thank you, Bhante, for sharing Dhamma this evening. And we'll have Sutta study again tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., then monk chat at 7:30 p.m. So please stockpile some questions to bring to monk chat for the three of us to answer. Then we'll be resuming again next Wednesday. So see you all tomorrow. We'll end with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.